What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome to another gun guide. I'm going to call it a gun guide at least. It is a little bit different from my normal gun guide series. Today, we're going to be covering the brand new D1.3 Sector that's in the TMNT event. Since there are some interesting stats, we've got multiple different blade types that we can use. We have the base blades, we have the explosive blades, as well as the Ricochet blades. And I wanted to break down exactly how this works, as well as what I consider to be the best setups to use with this gun special launcher thingy. So in case you guys weren't aware, this is a secondary in the special category alongside the Siren 9mm. And with this, you're shooting out saw blades at enemy players. And like I said, there are 3 different ammo types, and let's start it off by going through the individual characteristics of these ammo types before getting into more of like the base stats that apply regardless of the ammo that you're using. And with the base ammo, if you're not using a magazine attachment, one saw blade will deal 150 damage anywhere in the body at any range, meaning in core game modes it will always be a one-hit kill. Unless we're talking about kill order with the HVT having armor equipped. When it comes to our rate of fire on this is 82 rounds per minute, which is quite slow. This means that usually you're not going to get a follow-up shot on any enemy that's actually paying attention to you when you engage with them. Obviously, if you're trying to shoot at somebody from behind or from the side or something, sure, you might get that second shot off, but probably not within a gunfight itself. And based on my hand testing at least, since they don't display this in the advanced stats, our blade velocity is about 75 meters per second. This is just an average that I took on an 80-meter shot. And this is quite a slow velocity, and this means you will have to lead moving targets. If they're moving perpendicular to you, especially very quickly, you're going to have to lead them. Even in reasonably close ranges, you're still going to have to lead your target. And if you are trying to take a longer shot as well, you're going to have to aim fairly high since it will drop off over time. So that's the base ammo out of the way. It's also worth noting your blades don't ricochet at all. That's going to be a different ammo type. But before we get into that, let's get into our explosive ammo. And with this, the blades will explode on impact when you fire them. And the maximum splash damage hit radius is 4.4 meters. Anything beyond that, you won't deal damage to the enemy player. And at that 4.4 meters, we're only dealing 25 damage to non-flak jacket users, so barely even hurting them at all. However, we are capable of getting a one-hit kill without a direct impact with the explosive ammo against non-flak jacket users at least. And this radius is 1.5 meters. So anything within 1.5 meters, if you're just shooting it right at their foot, for instance, and it hits the ground, it can kill them as long as they're not using flak jacket. And if they are using flak jacket, it will still be a one-hit kill with a direct impact, but it has to be a direct impact, assuming they have full health. Now, when it comes to our rate of fire with the explosive ammo, it is reduced fairly drastically down to 57 rounds per minute, so that's one of the big downsides. While you do gain that explosive power, we are firing quite a bit slower than the base ammo. And we also see a reduction to our blade velocity, which across that 80-meter distance is now about 65 meters per second, so just a little bit slower than the base ammo. And then finally, we've got the Ricochet ammo, and with this, your blade will bounce off of surfaces, and it will bounce multiple times as well. I've seen as many as like 4 or 5 bounces before it loses all of its momentum and just drops to the ground. But realistically, you're usually going to get about 2 to 3 bounces out of a Ricochet. However, the huge downside with this one is it's no longer a one-shot kill in core game modes. We're only dealing 75 damage, and this, again, applies anywhere in the body at any range. And interestingly, it even applies this same amount of damage after multiple bounces. So if it bounces off something, it doesn't lose any power, or at least damage power. It just loses momentum and velocity. Now, some other upsides you gain with the Ricochet ammo is our rate of fire is increased nicely up to 95 rounds per minute, so you can spam it a little bit faster, but realistically, this is still a very slow fire rate. And if you're in a face-to-face gunfight against somebody using a regular gun in this game, you're still almost never going to get that second shot off, assuming they're at least half decent at the game. But it is faster at least, and our blade velocity is also very noticeably faster at about 115 meters per second. So you don't have to account for drop as much, you don't have to lead your target quite as much as well, although you will still have to lead them. But at the end of the day, at least for core game modes, the fact that you lose the one-shot kill potential, in my eyes, just makes Ricochet ammo effectively useless. And then when we're talking about hardcore game modes, where the Ricochet ammo can get a one-shot kill, the problem there is, since it's ricocheting, you don't have full control over where that blade ends up, and the risk of team killing becomes a little bit too high while using this in my eyes. So I really feel that leaves the Ricochet ammo no solid place in the game, and I would just recommend staying away from it, unless you really want to just mess around and challenge yourself for some reason. So there we go, those are the different ammo types that you can use on this. However, another key difference here is going to be our magazine capacity. So let's have a look at our reload time and magazine capacity with these. And our base reload time, just using the standard ammo, is 1.83 seconds with a magazine capacity of 5 rounds. Whereas with explosive ammo, we only get a 4-round magazine, but turns out our reload time is exactly the same at 1.83 seconds, and the Ricochet ammo gives us 8 rounds in a magazine, and once again, it doesn't impact our reload time. So there's just another little upside to the Ricochet ammo and a downside to the explosive ammo. Now, let's move on and talk about accuracy a little bit here, because one interesting thing about this, regardless of the ammo type that you're using, you're essentially perfectly accurate firing from the hip, and the only thing you have to compensate for here is leading your target, as well as the drop over time with the trajectory of the saw blade. So what this means is if you're not moving your aim at all, those saw blades are all going to go effectively right in the same spot. There's maybe just the slightest amount of movement, but not enough that you have to actually worry about this in-game at all. And interestingly, aiming down sight and shooting is technically going to be a little bit less accurate, because with this gun, the moment you aim down sight, you start getting idle sway, which is actually going to be moving your point of aim very slightly, whereas in hip fire, it doesn't move at all. So most of the time, you're actually better off just hip firing, unless you really need that extra zoom to be able to see your target a little bit better. And with all of that out of the way, let's get into our handling and mobility stats here. And handling-wise, we're not looking too good for a secondary. Our aim down sight time is fairly slow at 300 milliseconds, but like I said, you don't even really want to aim down sight most of the time. Our sprint out time is a bit on the slow side, especially compared to the pistols in this game, at 230 milliseconds for our standard sprint out time and 330 milliseconds for our tactical sprint out time. And then our slide to fire and dive to fire times are also quite slow for a secondary weapon at 410 milliseconds and 490 milliseconds respectively. As for mobility, we're also quite slow here in every area except our standard sprint speed, which is interesting. Our regular sprint speed is 6.8 meters per second, which is actually better than most of the pistols in this game. But then our tactical sprint speed is significantly slower than the pistols in this game at just 7.3 meters per second. So as far as traversing the map really quickly with tac sprints, this is not going to be the best choice for you. However, since our base sprint speed is so good, this makes Slipstream a really good perk to combo with the D1.3 Sector, since we get a multiplier off of our base sprint speed, not our tac sprint speed. And there we go. With that out of the way, let's now get into the best attachment combinations to use with the D1.3 Sector, and this is going to be the easiest section ever. With this, outside of our ammo attachments in the magazine category, our attachments are just pure upsides, and as a result, if you've got them unlocked, you want to be using all of your attachments. So you want the long barrel, the crossbar, as well as the overclock stock. And then the magazine or ammo type is just up to you at that point, but at the end of the day, I would definitely not recommend using Ricochet ammo, and therefore I'd say your best options are limited to either the base ammo, which is totally fine as is, or you could go with the explosive ammo, which is not a bad choice as well. Again, just remember the key trade-offs there for getting that explosive ammo is you get a smaller magazine capacity, a noticeably slower rate of fire, and a slower blade velocity. So while it might seem like a no-brainer to go with explosive ammo, because why not have a blade that explodes compared to one that doesn't, there are some clear downsides there, and you just have to balance those downsides appropriately. And there we go. That's pretty much it. That's going to wrap it up for today's video, breaking down the D1.3 Sector. Overall, I would say this is a fun, interesting addition to the game, but I've got to say, I'm very disappointed in the Ricochet Blades. I would love to see them do something to those, but I honestly don't know what the correct answer is here. I think making those a one-hit kill would be a bit too dangerous. So one idea at least is maybe make it a 2-round burst when you use Ricochet ammo. So you always fire 2 blades in a very quick succession. So if you're on target, you could hit one blade after the other really quickly, but then of course have a burst delay so you can't just like spam it with a really high fire rate in full auto. And that would at least allow you to spam a couple blades at a time into a room. You'd have them bouncing around all over the place, and you'd have a better chance at potentially killing someone with one burst fired. Because as of right now, even though you do get a rate of fire improvement over the base, it's not nearly enough to actually be competitive with a 2-shot kill. Now, of course, those are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the D1.3 Sector in Black Ops 6 so far? Are you guys generally enjoying it, or not so much? If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.